"We're keeping the car, find your way," my daughter-in-law said, and left me by the roadside. I watched those taillights shrink to nothing, and that's when the laugh came. Not because anything was funny, but because my brain couldn't process what had just happened. My own family had robbed me and left me stranded like I was garbage they needed to dispose of. Has someone in your family ever taken something that wasn't theirs? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. The gravel crunched under my suitcase as the taillights disappeared. Then I heard myself laugh, not from joy, but from the shock of being thrown away by my own blood. If you've ever trusted family with everything you owned, this story will shake you to your core. Have you ever felt completely betrayed by the people closest to you? Has someone in your family ever taken something that wasn't theirs? Do you know someone who's been abandoned by their own children? Here's what happened when my son and his wife decided I was disposable, and how I proved them dead wrong. Follow along as we uncover a web of lies that nearly cost me everything I worked for. It was a Tuesday afternoon on Route 84, just outside Hartford, Connecticut. The kind of day where the heat makes everything shimmer and you roll the windows down because the air conditioning costs too much gas. My daughter-in-law Karen was driving my car, the 2018 Honda Civic I'd bought 3 years earlier with money I'd saved from working double shifts at the warehouse. I thought we were just stopping for gas. Maybe she needed to make a phone call. The silence between us had been thick for miles, but that wasn't unusual. Karen never talked much when it was just the two of us. She pulled into this empty rest area, all cracked asphalt and weeds pushing through the concrete. Not even a bathroom or vending machine. Just nothing. That should have been my first warning. "We need to talk," she said, but she didn't turn off the engine. I shifted in the passenger seat, my back aching from the long ride. "About what?" That's when she looked at me with those cold blue eyes. No emotion. Like she was reading a grocery list. "We're keeping the car. Find your way home." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. I actually felt my heart skip. "What did you just say?" She got out without answering, walked to the trunk, and popped it open. My small suitcase, the one I'd packed for what I thought was a weekend visit to help them move, landed on the gravel with a thud. "Karen, what are you doing?" "This is my car." She slammed the trunk shut. "Not anymore." That's when I saw my son Michael in the passenger seat. My own boy, 28 years old, sitting there like a statue. He wouldn't even look at me. "Michael." I called out. "Michael, what is this?" He finally turned. For just a second, I saw something in his face. Shame, maybe. Or guilt. But then Karen got back in the driver's seat and whatever I'd seen disappeared. "Dad, we need the car more than you do. You hardly drive anyway." "Hardly drive?" I drove to work every day. I drove to the grocery store, to church, to the doctor. That car was my independence, my freedom, my way of staying connected to the world. "Son, I bought this car. It's in my name. You can't just." The engine roared to life, cutting off my words. Family can turn on you without warning signs. Subscribe so you recognize the red flags before they strike. Karen rolled down the window just enough to speak. "The registration's probably expired anyway. Good luck getting home." And then they drove away. My son. My daughter-in-law. In my car. Leaving me standing in a rest area in Connecticut with nothing but a suitcase and $12 in my wallet. I watched those taillights shrink to nothing, and that's when the laugh came. Not because anything was funny, but because my brain couldn't process what had just happened. My own family had robbed me and left me stranded like I was garbage they needed to dispose of. The heat pressed down on my shoulders. Cars whooshed past on the highway, but nobody stopped. Nobody even slowed down. I was just an old man with a suitcase, invisible to the world. But as I stood there, feeling the gravel through my worn sneakers, one thought cut through all the hurt and confusion. they forgot I still had the original paperwork. Every payment receipt. Every insurance document. Every single piece of paper that proved that car belonged to me. They thought I was broken. They thought I was finished. They had no idea what was coming. Comment evidence, if you'd have gone straight for the documents, or HRTBREAK, if you'd have called them first. The bus fare to Springfield cost me $12, every penny I had left. The ride took 2 hours, and every mile felt like a lifetime. I kept replaying Karen's words. Find your way home. Like I was some stray dog they'd gotten tired of feeding. The apartment building looked smaller when I finally walked up those concrete steps. 3 stories of weathered brick, with my unit on the 2nd floor. I'd lived there for 8 years, ever since the divorce was finalized, and I needed somewhere cheap but clean. The hallway smelled like cooking oil and old carpet. Mrs. Chen from 2B poked her head out when she heard my keys. Mr. Thompson? I thought you were visiting your son this week. Change of plans, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at my suitcase, then at my face, and I could see the questions forming. But she just nodded and disappeared back into her apartment. Good neighbors know when not to push. Inside my place, everything felt different. The silence was heavier. The room seemed smaller, like shame had moved in while I was gone. The kitchen still had the breakfast dishes I'd washed before leaving. 2 days ago, though it felt like weeks. I sat at my little table and just breathed for a minute. The refrigerator hummed. The clock on the wall ticked. Normal sounds that felt foreign after what had happened. That's when I remembered the plastic folder. I keep important papers in an old shoebox behind my photo albums, tucked away in the bedroom closet. Birth certificate, social security card, lease agreement. And yes, every document related to that Honda Civic. My hands shook a little as I pulled out the folder. Everything was there. The original sales contract from the dealership. The loan paperwork with my signature. The insurance policy with my name as the primary holder. 3 years of payment receipts, all stamped and dated. But something caught my eye as I spread the papers across the kitchen table. The car registration I was looking at had my name printed clearly at the top. But stapled behind it was another registration form, one I'd never seen before. This one had Michael's name listed as owner, with a signature at the bottom that was supposed to be mine. Except it wasn't my signature. The handwriting was close, but not close enough. The loops were too wide. The pressure was too light. Someone had tried to forge my name, and they'd done a decent job, but not perfect. I held both documents up to the light. The dates didn't match either. According to this forged registration, I'd signed the car over to Michael 6 months ago. But I'd never signed anything. I'd never even been asked. The registration was still there, but something about the signatures looked wrong. Ever had family steal from you while smiling to your face? I spread the papers across my kitchen table like I was solving a murder case. Because in a way, I was. Someone had tried to kill my ownership of that car, and they'd left fingerprints all over the paperwork. The forged signature was just the beginning. I pulled out my reading glasses and a magnifying glass I'd bought years ago for examining stamps. Never thought I'd be using it to investigate my own family. 3 different documents had signatures that were supposed to be mine. The registration transfer. An insurance beneficiary change. And something called a voluntary relinquishment of ownership, fancy words for giving up my rights to the car. None of them were signed by me. But someone had studied my handwriting carefully. They'd gotten the basic shape of my letters right. The way I cross my T's. How I loop my G's. If you weren't looking closely, you might believe these signatures were real. But I was looking closely now. The pen pressure was all wrong on every single one. I write with a heavy hand. 40 years of warehouse work will do that to you. These signatures were light, careful, like someone was concentrating hard on copying something they'd seen. Document fraud happens to thousands yearly. Subscribe to learn the warning signs before you're the victim. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. Hidden in the insurance paperwork was a beneficiary change form, dated 2 months ago. If anything happened to me, accident, illness, death, the car would go directly to Michael and Karen. No probate court. No waiting period. Just a quick transfer. They hadn't just stolen my car. They'd been planning for my death. I looked at the dates more carefully. The insurance change was submitted in April. The registration transfer was filed in May. The voluntary relinquishment was dated last week, 3 days before they'd even asked to borrow the car for their supposed move. This wasn't a family emergency. This wasn't desperation or bad judgment. This was a calculated plan to erase me from ownership of my own property. I got up and walked to the window, looking down at the parking lot where my Honda should have been parked. Space number 47, right under the streetlight where I always left it. Empty now. But as I stood there, something else occurred to me. If they'd gone to this much trouble to forge documents, they hadn't done it alone. Karen wasn't smart enough to navigate insurance forms and DMV paperwork. And Michael barely managed his own bills. Someone had helped them. Someone who knew how these systems worked. I went back to the table and examined the documents again. The insurance change had been notarized, stamped with an official seal and signed by a notary public. I copied down the notary's name and license number. Then I checked the date again. The transfer date was stamped 3 days before they even asked to borrow the car. Pause and count. How many red flags do you see so far? Sunday morning came like every other Sunday for the past 8 years. Coffee at 7, shower at 8, dressed and ready for the 9 a.m. service at Grace Community Church. But this Sunday, I had more than prayer on my mind. Pastor Williams always made time for people after service. Real time, not just a handshake and a smile. When most of the congregation had filed out, I approached him with my plastic folder tucked under my arm. Pastor, I need some advice. Legal advice. He led me to his office, a small room behind the sanctuary filled with books and pictures of church events. I'd been in dozens of those pictures over the years, volunteering at food drives, helping with repairs, always there when the church needed something. I spread the forged documents across his desk without saying a word. Pastor Williams studied them carefully. He didn't gasp or get dramatic. He just read through everything with the same careful attention he gave to preparing sermons. Finally, he looked up. How long has this been going on? I just found out yesterday. They left me stranded in Connecticut and drove off with my car. He reached for his phone and dialed a number. Martha? It's Pastor Williams. I have someone here who needs your help. Yes, the kind of help you used to provide. Can you come by the church? 20 minutes later, Martha Rodriguez walked into that office and changed everything. Martha was retired now, but she'd spent 35 years as a legal aid, specializing in elder law and family disputes. She was small and soft-spoken, with gray hair pulled back in a practical bun. But when she looked at those documents, her eyes turned sharp as a hawk's. This is textbook elder financial abuse, she said after 5 minutes of examination. And whoever helped them knew exactly what they were doing. She pointed to the insurance form. See this beneficiary change? It bypasses probate. If anything happened to you, accident, heart attack, anything, the car transfers immediately. No questions asked. The room went quiet. Pastor Williams folded his hands. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. You're saying they were planning for me to die? I'm saying they were planning for you to be out of the picture. One way or another. Martha pulled out a small notebook and started writing. We need to move fast. Every day that car stays in their possession makes it harder to recover. Do you have copies of the original loan documents? I nodded. Insurance papers with you listed as primary? Everything's in the folder. She smiled for the first time since walking in. Then we have a case. A strong one. Martha's first question, do you have copies of the original loan documents? I did. Tag someone who'd have your back when family turns against you. Martha knew a girl who could help us dig deeper. Jessica Chen, yes, related to my neighbor Mrs. Chen, was fresh out of paralegal school and worked part-time at the legal aid office downtown. She was maybe 25, with bright eyes and fingers that moved across computer keyboards like she was playing piano. Bring everything you have, Martha had told me. Jessica can find digital footprints that most people don't even know exist. The legal aid office was tucked between a pawn shop and a laundromat on State Street. Not fancy, but it didn't need to be. Jessica's desk was covered with 2 computer monitors, stacks of case files, and a coffee mug that said, "Future Lawyer." She listened to my story without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she cracked her knuckles. "Let me see what the DMV database shows." Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Numbers and dates filled the screen faster than I could follow. "Here's your original registration," she said, pointing to the left monitor. "Clean record, all payments current, registered to." She paused. Her face went stone cold. "What is it?" "According to this, ownership was transferred to Michael Thompson on May 15th. But look at this timestamp." She clicked something and a new window opened. The electronic filing was submitted at 2:47 a.m. on a Sunday. The DMV office was closed. This was done online, using your personal information. Digital fraud leaves permanent trails most victims never find. Subscribe to stay ahead of tech-savvy scammers. Can they do that? Transfer ownership without me being there? Jessica shook her head. Not legally. You have to appear in person or send notarized documents. But someone with your social security number, driver's license number, and personal details could create an online account in your name. She pulled up another screen. Insurance database shows the same pattern. Beneficiary changed to Michael and Karen Thompson on April 3rd, filed electronically at 11:23 p.m. on a Tuesday. Who changes insurance at midnight? Someone who doesn't want witnesses, Martha said quietly. Jessica kept typing. I'm checking the notary database now. She entered the license number from the forged documents. A photo popped up. Linda Morrison, licensed notary since 2018. But something was wrong with the dates. Your documents show she notarized the ownership transfer on May 10th, Jessica said. But according to the Notary Board database, Linda Morrison was on vacation in Florida from May 8th through May 16th. I can see her out-of-state credit card transactions. The room went dead silent. The notary seal was fake, I whispered. Not just fake, Jessica corrected. It's a federal crime to forge a notary seal. This just became a lot more serious. She printed out everything, timestamps, database records, the notary's vacation schedule, even credit card records showing Linda Morrison was 1,200 miles away when she supposedly witnessed my signature. Whoever did this knew what they were doing, Jessica said. But they made one mistake. What's that? They thought you'd never check. The notary seal was fake, and the real notary had been on vacation that entire week. Drop digital detective if you trust the computer records over family promises. Martha made one more phone call that changed everything. Tom Bradley had been investigating insurance fraud for 23 years, first with the state police, now as a private consultant. He agreed to meet us at the legal aid office that same afternoon. Tom was the kind of guy who noticed details other people missed. Gray hair, quiet voice, but eyes that took in everything. He spread my documents across the conference table like he was assembling a puzzle. This isn't amateur hour, he said after studying the paperwork for 10 minutes. Someone coached them through this entire process. He pointed to the insurance forms first. See how clean these are? No correction fluid, no crossed-out mistakes, no hesitation marks in the signatures. Whoever forged these practiced first. Then he showed me something I'd missed. In the corner of each document was a tiny code number. These forms were printed from the same computer, probably on the same day. The printer code embedded in the paper tells us it's a newer laser printer, expensive model, probably in an office setting. What does that mean? It means your son and daughter-in-law didn't do this alone. They had help from someone with access to professional equipment and knowledge of the system. Tom pulled out his own magnifying glass and examined the signatures more carefully. The pressure patterns are consistent across all 3 documents. Same pen, same hand doing the forgery. But here's what's interesting. He pointed to a tiny smudge on the registration form. See this? That's from a left-handed person. The forger dragged their hand across wet ink. Are you left-handed? No. Right-handed my whole life. So the person who forged your signature is left-handed. That narrows down our suspect list considerably. Martha was taking notes. Is Michael left-handed? I thought for a moment. No, he's right-handed like me. But Karen. I paused. Karen writes with her left hand. Tom nodded. The coaching came from inside the insurance company, someone they knew. These forms were filled out by someone familiar with the process. Look at how the boxes are completed. Perfect margins, consistent spacing, professional formatting. He flipped to the last page. And here's the smoking gun. This internal processing code shouldn't be visible to customers. It's printed automatically when forms are processed through the company's system. Someone with employee access helped prepare these documents. Employee access? Someone who works for the insurance company, or used to work there. Someone who knew exactly which forms to use and how to make them look legitimate. The room felt smaller suddenly. This wasn't just family betrayal anymore. This was organized fraud involving multiple people. Tom closed the folder. I'll need to make some calls. Find out who your son and daughter-in-law know in the insurance business. The coaching came from inside the insurance company, someone they knew. Who was the inside connection? Back home that evening, I couldn't stop thinking about Tom's words. Professional help. Inside connection. Someone who knew the system. I went back to that shoebox in my closet, digging deeper than I had before. Behind the car papers, I found something that made my heart sink even further. My will. I'd written it 6 months ago, right after Michael and Karen came to me crying about their financial emergency. Karen had lost her job at the beauty salon. Michael's construction work was slow. They were behind on rent, facing eviction, drowning in credit card debt. Dad, we don't know what we'd do without you, Michael had said that night. You're all we have left. So I'd gone to the lawyer and updated my will. Everything I owned, the car, my small savings account, even this apartment lease, would go to Michael when I died. I wanted to take care of my son, make sure he'd be okay when I was gone. The will was dated 6 months ago, right after their first financial emergency request. I spread the original draft across my kitchen table next to the forged documents. My handwriting was all over the margins, notes about what to include, what to leave out, how to make sure Michael would be provided for. Vehicle, 2018 Honda Civic to transfer to son upon death. Savings account, First National Bank, account ending 4751. Personal effects, son to inherit and distribute as appropriate. Everything laid out clearly. Everything they would have gotten eventually. But apparently, eventually wasn't soon enough. I found my copy of the signed will and read through it again. There, in black and white, was proof that I'd planned to take care of my family. I'd never been stingy. Never tried to control them with money. I just wanted to make sure they'd be okay when I wasn't around anymore. At the bottom of the will was the lawyer's business card, stapled to the back page. Janet Murphy, elder law attorney. I remembered her. Sharp woman in her 50s, with a warm smile and careful questions. She'd asked me that day, "Are you making this decision freely? No pressure from family members?" Of course, I'd answered. I want to take care of my son. And you understand this gives him everything when you pass away? That's what fathers do, I'd said. Now, holding that will in my hands, I felt sick. They would have inherited everything legally, eventually. The car, the savings, all of it. But they couldn't wait. They wanted it now, while I was still alive to see them take it. I thought about calling Janet Murphy, but it was past business hours. Instead, I made copies of everything: the will, the forged documents, Tom's notes, Jessica's printouts. If something happened to me, if this was all part of a bigger plan, I wanted evidence to survive. Because sitting there in my kitchen, reading my own will by lamplight, a terrible thought occurred to me. If they were willing to forge documents to steal my car, what else might they be willing to do? The will was dated 6 months ago, right after their first financial emergency request. What's worse, stealing from strangers or stealing from the person who'd give you everything? Monday morning, Martha called with news. Get dressed and meet me at the courthouse. We're filing for a temporary restraining order. An hour later, I sat in Judge Patricia Hawkins' chambers with Martha by my side. The room smelled like old books and coffee. Judge Hawkins was maybe 60, with silver hair and reading glasses that she kept adjusting as she reviewed our paperwork. Mr. Thompson, you're alleging that your vehicle was taken without permission and that documents were forged to transfer ownership? Yes, Your Honor. I have all the evidence right here. Martha had organized everything perfectly. Original registration with my real signature. Forged documents with the fake signature. Jessica's computer printouts showing the impossible timestamps. Tom's analysis of the notary fraud. Judge Hawkins studied each document carefully. She held the signatures up to the light, just like I had done. She examined the timestamps. She read Tom's report twice. The evidence appears compelling, she said finally. Mr. Thompson, do you believe your vehicle is in danger of being sold or disposed of? I don't know, Your Honor. They've already changed the registration illegally. I'm afraid they'll sell it before I can get it back. Legal victories can disappear overnight without proper documentation. Subscribe to protect what's yours. Judge Hawkins picked up her pen. I'm granting a temporary restraining order prohibiting the sale, transfer, or disposal of the 2018 Honda Civic, license plate number. She read off my plate number from the original registration. This order is effective immediately and will remain in place pending a full hearing. The vehicle cannot be sold, traded, or removed from the state. Violation of this order constitutes contempt of court. The court clerk stamped "Granted" in red ink across the top of the order. I didn't cheer or celebrate. I just felt my shoulders drop for the first time in weeks, like I'd been holding my breath and could finally exhale. Copies will be served to all parties within 24 hours, the judge continued. Sheriff's Department will handle service. Walking out of that courthouse, Martha squeezed my arm. This is just the beginning, but it's a good beginning. They can't get rid of the evidence now. I checked my watch. It was 2:45 p.m. By tomorrow, Michael and Karen would know the game had changed. But I wasn't prepared for how fast they'd respond. At 4 p.m., my phone rang. Michael's number showed on the caller ID. I let it ring 5 times before answering. Hello? Dad. His voice was strained, different than I'd ever heard it. We need to talk. The restraining order was served at 3 p.m. By 4 p.m., my son was calling. What do you think he said when the sheriff showed up? Dad, why are you doing this to us? His voice cracked when he asked the question, like I was the one who'd committed fraud. Like I was the one who'd left him stranded on a highway. Doing what, Michael? Getting my car back? You know it's not that simple. Karen's been crying all afternoon. The sheriff scared her, showing up at work with those papers. Her boss asked questions. She might lose her job. I sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd discovered their lies. She should have thought about that before forging my signature. Dad, please. You're tearing this family apart. Family. The word tasted bitter now. I didn't tear anything apart, son. You did that when you abandoned me on Route 84. Silence on the other end. Then I heard Karen's voice in the background, sharp and angry. Tell him we'll fight this. Tell him he'll never see his grandchildren again. My heart stopped. Those grandchildren, Emma, age 6, and little Jake, just turned 4, were the light of my life. Sunday dinners, bedtime stories, teaching them to fish at Miller's Pond. Michael, put Karen on the phone. Dad, she's upset. Maybe we should. Put her on the phone. A moment later, Karen's voice came through, cold as January ice. You're making a big mistake, old man. Am I? Wanting my own car back is a mistake. That car means more to us than it does to you. We have kids to think about. Jobs to get to. You just sit in that apartment all day anyway. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. Just sit in that apartment. Like I wasn't a human being with places to go, things to do, a life to live. Karen, I worked double shifts for 3 years to pay for that car. And now you can work double shifts to buy another one. We're keeping this one. The court says otherwise. That's when her voice turned into something I'd never heard before. Pure venom. You'll never see Emma and Jake again. Ever. They'll grow up knowing their grandfather chose a stupid car over his own family. The phone felt heavy in my hand. Those words hit harder than losing the car ever could. Emotional blackmail escalates when legal pressure mounts. Subscribe to recognize manipulation before it breaks you. You can't keep me from my grandchildren. Watch me. And if you think this court order changes anything, you're wrong. We'll drag this out for years. Legal fees will eat up whatever savings you have left. In the end, you'll have nothing. I heard Michael in the background. Karen, that's enough. But she wasn't done. One phone call and I'll have child services investigating you. Unfit grandfather. Unstable. Making false accusations against family. They'll believe me before they believe some bitter old man. The line went quiet except for my own breathing. Then Michael's voice came back, softer now. Dad? Dad, are you there? I'm here. Look, maybe we can work something out. Meet halfway. You drop the court case, we'll let you see the kids sometimes. Let me see them sometimes. Like it was a privilege they could grant or take away. Michael, do you remember when you were 8 and wanted that bike for Christmas? The red Schwinn? Dad, what does that have to? I worked overtime for 2 months to afford it. Missed dinners, missed sleep, but Christmas morning there it was under the tree. I remember. I never asked you to pay me back. I never held it over your head. That's what family does. Silence. This conversation is over, Michael. I hung up before he could respond. That's when she grabbed the phone and said something that changed everything. Ever had someone flip the victim and perpetrator roles on you? The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls and a voicemail that made my blood run cold. You have reached the voicemail of Karen's voice, formal and rehearsed. But this wasn't a regular message. Mr. Thompson, this is regarding your harassment of our family. We have documented evidence of your unstable behavior and false accusations. If you continue this legal action, we will be forced to protect ourselves and our children from your increasingly erratic conduct. Our attorney has advised us that elder abuse works both ways. You'll never see Emma and Jake again. 6 words that hit harder than losing the car ever could. I played the message 3 times, my hands shaking more with each replay. Then I called Martha. They're threatening to cut off contact with my grandchildren, I told her. And something about elder abuse working both ways. Can you come in this morning? Bring the phone with that message. An hour later, I sat in Martha's small office while she played the voicemail through her computer speakers. This is textbook emotional manipulation, she said when it finished. They're escalating because the legal pressure is working. But can they really keep me from seeing Emma and Jake? Martha leaned back in her chair. Legally? No. Grandparents have visitation rights in Massachusetts, especially when there's an established relationship. But they can make it difficult. Expensive. Emotionally exhausting. What did she mean about elder abuse working both ways? It's a manipulation tactic. They're trying to flip the script, make you the villain. But here's what they don't understand. Every threat they make, every intimidation attempt, it's all evidence. She pulled out her phone. I'm calling Jessica. We need to document everything, voicemails, text messages, any contact they make. The more they talk, the deeper hole they dig. 20 minutes later, Jessica arrived with a small recording device. Play the message again, she said, connecting the device to Martha's computer. As Karen's voice filled the room again, Jessica took notes. Threats against family relationship. Intimidation. False accusations of unstable behavior. This is harassment, pure and simple. What's our next move? I asked. Martha smiled grimly. We let them keep talking. People like this can't help themselves. The more pressure they feel, the more mistakes they make. But what about Emma and Jake? We document everything. Build a case that shows who's really causing instability in this family. And Mr. Thompson? She looked at me seriously. Don't respond to their calls anymore. Let them leave messages. Let them send texts. Every word they say is evidence we can use. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Dad, Karen's just upset. We can work this out without lawyers. Call me. I showed the message to Martha. Classic good cop, bad cop routine, she said. Don't respond. Let them wonder what you're thinking. But that evening, another message came through. This one was different. A photo of Emma and Jake at the playground, with a caption, "They're asking where Grandpa is." What should we tell them? My heart broke a little more. Martha's advice was simple: document every threat. They just gave you more evidence. Comment "Stand firm" if you'd continue fighting, or "Family first" if you'd drop the case. 3 days later, a thick envelope arrived by certified mail. The return address showed Morrison and Associates, attorneys at law. My hands shook as I signed for it. Inside was a 10-page letter on expensive letterhead, written in the kind of legal language designed to intimidate. The basic message was simple: drop the case or face consequences. Our clients have been subjected to harassment and false accusations by an elderly family member exhibiting signs of cognitive decline, the letter read. Mr. Thompson's claims are without merit and constitute defamation of character. Cognitive decline. They were claiming I was losing my mind. The letter went on to threaten countersuits for emotional distress, defamation, and something called malicious prosecution. They demanded I pay their legal fees and issue a public apology. At the bottom, in bold letters, this matter will be resolved in our client's favor. We suggest Mr. Thompson accept reality and withdraw his frivolous claims. I called Martha immediately. Bring the letter, she said. And don't let it scare you. This is exactly what we expected. That afternoon, Jessica spread the letter across her desk next to her computer. Let me check something, she said, typing rapidly. These lawyers. Morrison and Associates. Her face lit up. Here we go. This letterhead? It's a template. You can buy it online for $12. What do you mean? Morrison and Associates doesn't exist. Look at this. She showed me her screen. The address on the letterhead is a UPS store mailbox. The phone number goes to a voicemail service. The Bar Association has no record of any attorney named Morrison in Massachusetts. My jaw dropped. They hired fake lawyers? Worse. They probably wrote this themselves using a legal template website. Martha leaned over Jessica's shoulder. Check the metadata on the document. Jessica opened the file properties. Created last Tuesday at 11:47 p.m. on a home computer. Same day they got served with the restraining order. She pulled up another window. And look at this, the document was edited 17 times before they sent it. Real lawyers don't need 17 drafts for a standard cease and desist letter. The letter was impressive, until Jessica found the metadata showing it was copied from a template website. We need to respond, Martha said. But not how they expect. An hour later, we'd prepared our own letter. Not 10 pages of threats, but 2 pages of facts. Jessica's digital evidence. Tom's forensic analysis. The fake notary documentation. The impossible timestamps. At the bottom, Martha had written one simple line: silence isn't surrender. See you in court. That's it? I asked. Sometimes the best response is showing them you're not afraid, Martha said. They expected you to back down, pay their fake legal fees, apologize for being robbed. Instead, we're doubling down. She sealed the envelope and handed it to me. Want to do the honors? I walked to the mailbox outside the legal aid office and dropped it in. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I was fighting back instead of just defending myself. Forensic comparison, greenlit. Ever been told to back down, and didn't? The monthly Grace Community Church board meeting wasn't supposed to be about my legal troubles. But word had gotten around, the way it does in small communities, and people were taking sides. I'd been attending these meetings for 8 years, ever since I joined the church. Usually, we discussed budgets, upcoming events, maintenance issues. Nothing controversial. But this Tuesday evening felt different when I walked into the fellowship hall. Michael and Karen were already there, sitting in the front row. They'd never attended a board meeting in their lives. Pastor Williams called the meeting to order at 7 sharp. Before we begin our regular business, I understand some members have personal matters they'd like the community to consider. Karen stood up immediately. She was dressed nice, her good church dress, hair done, makeup perfect. She looked like a grieving daughter-in-law. I want to thank everyone for their prayers during this difficult time, she began, her voice shaking slightly. It's been heartbreaking to watch Michael's father struggle with confusion and false accusations. She pulled out a tissue. We love him dearly, but his recent behavior has been. She paused, letting the silence do the work. Concerning. Making wild claims about forged documents. Accusing us of stealing. We're just trying to help him, but he's turned against his own family. Several people nodded sympathetically. Mrs. Henderson patted Michael's shoulder. We're here tonight to ask for the community's guidance, Karen continued. How do we help someone who won't accept help? It was a masterful performance. She painted herself as the victim, me as the confused old man, and the church as the solution. Pastor Williams looked uncomfortable. Thank you, Karen. Does anyone else wish to speak? I stood up slowly. I hadn't planned to say anything, but I couldn't let her words stand unchallenged. I brought something I'd like to share, I said quietly. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. Inside were copies of everything: the forged documents, Jessica's computer analysis, Tom's forensic report, the fake lawyer letter. I'm not confused, I said, walking toward the front of the room. And I'm not making false accusations. I handed the first set of documents to Mrs. Henderson. These are my original car registration and insurance papers, with my real signature. She examined them carefully, then passed them to the person beside her. And these, I said, distributing the second set, are forged documents with fake signatures, filed electronically at 2 a.m. on a Sunday when the DMV was closed. The room went completely quiet. You could hear papers rustling as people compared the signatures side by side. This computer analysis shows that the notary who supposedly witnessed my signature was on vacation in Florida that week. More papers passed from hand to hand. People were studying timestamps, examining signatures, reading Jessica's technical reports. Karen's face had gone pale. This is harassment. You can't just. And this, I said, holding up the fake lawyer letter, is from a law firm that doesn't exist, written on letterhead bought from a template website. Public manipulation can destroy reputations instantly. Subscribe to learn defense strategies before you need them. Pastor Williams held up his hand for silence. I think we've heard enough for tonight. This appears to be a legal matter that should be resolved through proper channels. But the damage was done. I could see it in people's faces. The sympathy for Karen had turned into something else. Questions. Doubt. Mrs. Henderson stood up, still holding the document comparison. These signatures don't match. Not even close. 5 simple words from someone the community trusted. Other voices joined in. Why would someone file documents at 2 a.m.? A vacation in Florida is easy enough to verify. That letterhead does look suspicious. Michael finally spoke. We should go, Karen. As they walked toward the door, Karen turned back one last time. This isn't over. Pastor Williams stood up and said 5 words that changed everything. What 5 words would you want to hear in that moment? The truth will set you free. That's what Pastor Williams had said, and his words echoed in the fellowship hall long after Michael and Karen left. 2 days later, Martha called with unexpected news. They want to mediate. Their real lawyer, not the fake one, called this morning. Real lawyer? Turns out they hired actual legal counsel after that church meeting. Someone named David Walsh. He's legitimate, and he wants to settle this before it goes to trial. The mediation was scheduled for Friday afternoon at the courthouse. I'd never been through anything like this before, sitting across a conference table from my own son while a neutral third party tried to negotiate peace. David Walsh was young, maybe 35, with tired eyes that told me he'd already figured out his client's case was hopeless. The mediator, Joyce Chin, no relation to Jessica or Mrs. Chin, was a retired judge who specialized in family disputes. Let's be clear about what we know, she began, reviewing the case file. Mr. Thompson, your evidence appears quite strong. Forged documents, fake notary seals, impossible timestamps. She turned to Michael and Karen. Your position is what, exactly? Walsh cleared his throat. My clients acknowledge that mistakes were made in the paperwork. They're prepared to return the vehicle and compensate Mr. Thompson for his troubles. What kind of compensation? Martha asked. We propose a split arrangement. Mr. Thompson keeps the car but pays my clients half its current value. Everyone walks away with something. The mediator said, split the difference, but some things can't be split. Trust. Dignity. The truth. I looked at Michael across that table. My own son, who'd sat silent while his wife tried to destroy my reputation in front of our church community. What about an apology? I asked. Walsh shifted uncomfortably. My clients prefer to focus on the practical resolution. No apology. No admission of wrongdoing. Just money changing hands to make this disappear. Mr. Thompson, the mediator said gently, this would avoid a lengthy court battle. Legal fees, stress, family relationships. Family relationships? I almost laughed. They abandoned me on a highway and forged my signature. What relationship is left to preserve? Karen spoke for the first time. We have children to think about. This needs to end. It can end right now, I said. Return my car. Admit what you did. Apologize to the people at church whose time you wasted with lies. That's not going to happen, Walsh said quickly. I stood up. Then we'll see you in court. Mr. Thompson, please, the mediator tried one more time. Consider the practical benefits. I am considering them. My car back in my driveway. My reputation cleared. Justice served. Those are the only practical benefits I care about. Martha packed up our papers. When's the court date? 2 weeks, the mediator said reluctantly. I told the mediator, return my car and we'll discuss forgiveness. Compromise or complete victory? What's your choice? The courthouse was busier on a Thursday morning than I'd expected. Lawyers in dark suits hurrying between courtrooms, families waiting nervously on wooden benches, the constant sound of footsteps on polished floors. Judge Patricia Hawkins, the same judge who'd granted our restraining order, presided over the final hearing. This time, the courtroom was formal, official, with a court reporter typing every word. Martha had prepared me well. Just answer the questions honestly. Don't elaborate. Let the evidence speak. David Walsh made one last attempt to negotiate before proceedings began. My clients are prepared to return the vehicle today if Mr. Thompson will sign a mutual non-disclosure agreement. Meaning what? I asked. No one talks about this case publicly. Clean slate for everyone. I looked at Walsh, then at Michael and Karen sitting behind him. They wouldn't even meet my eyes. No deal, I said. The hearing itself was anticlimactic. Jessica testified about the digital forensics. Tom presented his analysis of the forged documents. Martha walked through the timeline of deception, point by point. Walsh tried to argue that this was a family misunderstanding, blown out of proportion, but Judge Hawkins cut him off. Counselor, forged notary seals are federal crimes, not family misunderstandings. The evidence here is overwhelming. 20 minutes later, it was over. The court finds that the vehicle in question was taken without permission through fraudulent means, Judge Hawkins declared. Mr. Thompson's ownership is restored immediately. The defendants will return the vehicle and all keys within 24 hours. She paused, looking directly at Michael and Karen. I'm also referring this matter to the district attorney's office for possible criminal charges. That got their attention. An hour later, I stood in the courthouse parking lot as a sheriff's deputy supervised the key transfer. My Honda Civic looked smaller than I remembered, and dirtier. There were new scratches on the bumper and a dent in the passenger door that hadn't been there before. The keys felt heavier than I remembered when the sheriff placed them in my palm. You want to check the interior? The deputy asked. I opened the driver's door. The seats had stains I didn't recognize. The radio was tuned to a station I'd never listened to. My emergency roadside kit was missing from the trunk. But it was my car. My independence. My freedom to go where I wanted, when I wanted. Michael approached hesitantly as I was checking the engine. Dad, I looked at him. Really looked. He seemed smaller somehow, like the shame had physically diminished him. I'm sorry, he said quietly. This got way out of hand. Yes, it did. Maybe we could. I don't know. Start over? I closed the hood and faced my son. Michael, you sat in this car while your wife abandoned me on a highway. You watched her forge my signature. You threatened to keep my grandchildren from me. He nodded, tears in his eyes. Starting over means acknowledging what happened. All of it. I know. I will. I promise. Starting the engine, I realized this wasn't about the car anymore. It was about driving my own life again. What's the most important thing you've ever had to fight to keep? They didn't wave when I drove past their house. I didn't wave either. Some roads lead forward, not back. It was a Saturday morning, 3 weeks after the courthouse keys exchange. I was driving through the old neighborhood, not to visit Michael and Karen, but to pick up Martha Rodriguez for a special trip. Martha had called me the night before. There's someone I want you to meet. Another elder who's dealing with document fraud. Could use your experience. Her name was Helen Santos, and she lived in a senior apartment complex on the east side of Springfield. 83 years old, with silver hair and worried eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. They convinced me to sign a power of attorney, she told us over coffee in her small kitchen. My nephew and his wife. Said it was just for emergencies. She spread papers across the table, forms that looked familiar. Too familiar. Next thing I knew, they'd emptied my savings account. Sold my car. Put my apartment up for sale. I examined the documents. Same kind of professional formatting Tom Bradley had identified in my case. Same midnight electronic filings Jessica had found. This isn't random, I told Martha. This is organized. We spent the morning helping Helen understand her rights, documenting the fraud, connecting her with Jessica for digital analysis. By lunchtime, we had a plan of action. Driving Martha home afterward, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Purpose. Usefulness. The satisfaction of helping someone else fight back against people who prey on trust. You know, Martha said as I pulled into her driveway, you've got a gift for this. Understanding the paperwork, seeing the patterns, staying calm under pressure. What are you suggesting? The legal aid office could use volunteers. People who understand what victims go through because they've been there themselves. Stories like this happen daily across America. Subscribe to recognize the warning signs and protect yourself and others. I thought about it while driving home. My apartment felt different now, not smaller or sadder, but like a place where someone lived rather than just existed. That evening, Emma called. Not Michael, not Karen. Emma. 6 years old, with her father's eyes and her grandfather's stubborn streak. Grandpa? Daddy gave me his phone. He said I could call you. My heart nearly broke from happiness. Hi, sweetheart. I've missed you. Daddy's been sad. He cries sometimes when he thinks we're not looking. I'm sorry to hear that, Emma. Are you still mad at us? I thought carefully before answering. I was hurt, sweetheart. Very hurt. But I'm not mad at you or Jake. Never at you. Can we see you soon? Jake keeps asking when Grandpa's coming over. I'd like that very much. But your daddy and I need to talk first. Grown-up talk. About the car? Smart girl. About more than the car. About telling the truth and treating family right. 2 days later, Michael called. Not Karen, just Michael. Dad, we need to meet. Just us. No lawyers, no mediators. Father and son. We met at Miller's Pond, where I'd taught him to fish 20 years earlier. He looked tired, older than his 28 years. I keep thinking about that bike, he said, not looking at me. The red Schwinn. What about it? You never made me earn it. Never held it over my head. Just gave it because you loved me. We sat on the old wooden dock, watching the water ripple in the breeze. Karen's moving out, he said finally. Taking the kids to her sister's in Hartford. She says this is all my fault for not standing up to you. Is it? He was quiet for a long time. I should have stopped her. On the highway, at the church meeting, with the lawyers. I should have been the man you taught me to be. The sun was setting behind the trees, painting the pond gold and orange. Michael, I forgave you before you asked. That's what fathers do. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. I know. I'll do better. Be better. The road stretched ahead, clean and clear, with my hands on the wheel and my dignity intact. Share the one lesson from this story you'll carry forward.